What's going on, guys? MMA Outlaw back here with another video, and today we're going to be breaking down every single fight that's happening this weekend in Miami. UFC 327, Carlos Ulberg versus Jiri Procházka. And so let's waste no time. Let's get right into it and start with the early prelim opener of Charles Radtke versus Francisco Prado. Charles Radtke, the 35-year-old, taking on the young buck, Francisco Prado. Charles Radtke has had a successful UFC run thus far with a 4-2 record in the UFC with his 2 losses coming against 2 very, very talented fighters. The first loss coming against Carlos Prates. We all know how good the nightmare Carlos Prates is. And his second loss coming against Mike Malott in Canada. And let's just say Chuck Buffalo has had some great wins as well, KOing Gilbert Urbina. He had that submission win over the last guy he fought, who I'm totally drawing a blank on. He beat Blood Diamond via unanimous decision, beat Blood Diamond where he was best, on the feet, baby. Took out Matthew Semmelsberger, and he's fighting Francisco Prado, who's coming off of a loss to Vretnikov, I believe his loss was to. I'm going to double check just to make sure that I'm giving you guys accurate information. Yep, coming off of a split decision loss to Vretnikov, lost to Jake Matthews. We saw him lose to Daniel Zellhuber. His only win in the UFC coming over Otman Azaitar, who we all know was on that juice prior to that Francisco Prado fight, and Prado got an unjuiced Otman Azaitar. Obviously, we had Prado in that one, but Prado has been 1-4 in his UFC run. However, at 23 years old, we know Francisco Prado is kind of in that improvement window, and Chuck Buffalo, Charles Radtke, is a fairly refined, finished product, being 35 years old. However, Chuck Buffalo has had a lot of success in the UFC. We've seen him in there and having competitive moments with very, very high-level fighters like Carlos Prates, like Mike Malott. I know he got finished in those fights, but Charles Radtke has looked very, very good in his UFC career. And I'm just not the biggest fan of Francisco Prado. I don't think he has all that much to offer. I do believe he leaves a lot to be desired. And so, with that being said, Chuck Buffalo is a -200 favorite. I am going to go with Chuck Buffalo here in this prelim opener. I've seen Chuck Buffalo anywhere between -170 and -200. I don't mind Chuck Buffalo as a parlay piece. I do think Francisco Prado could come out here and show us, hey, like, I've made a lot of improvements, right? I'm still 23 years old. There's a lot that I can work on, and I know I can be better, right? But Charles Radtke, I think he's a large frame, a lot of finishing ability. He's going to have the reach advantage, as you see here. And Francisco Prado, he's made a lot of his fights at 155, and I think he's a 155er, where I think Chuck Buffalo is, a staple of the welterweight division. I really do like Charles Radtke here in that fight, and I think those -170 to -200 odds are very, very fair. And so if you want to throw Chuck Buffalo in a parlay, I wouldn't mind that at all. And so, moving onward, we got KG, my guy, Kelvin Gastelum. Why won't it expand? I don't want to click on Vicente Luque. We can look, actually, let's look at Vicente Luque, right? You guys see 11 wins by knockout, 9 by submission, 14 first-round finishes, and we know Vicente Luque has not looked good in his recent performances. That front choke submission win over Themba Grimbo is about all Vicente Luque has to offer. He got subbed by Kevin Holland. We saw Joel Alvarez absolutely dominate him. Joaquin Buckley looked very, very good against him. He really needs that kind of RDA-esque performance if we want to see Vicente Luque back there in good form. If we want to see Vicente Luque in good form, that's what we're going to need. Why will it not let me click and full screen this? My God. It lets me full screen Prado. God damn it, the UFC website sucks. You know what, we're not even gonna, let's see. We're gonna speed run it because they don't want us to see further stats, right? Kelvin Gastelum, fine fighter. He's been in wars. Both these guys put on for the UFC. We'll click on KG's just to show you some of his recent fights. He's been in a little bit better form than Vicente Luque as of recently with that win over Dustin Stoltzfus. He didn't look that bad against Joe Pyfer, although Joe Pyfer did knock him down twice. Daniel Rodriguez just getting out of prison. What up? We saw that. But Kelvin Gastelum beat Daniel Rodriguez, and Daniel Rodriguez has been in solid form, beating a guy in Kevin Holland, who's going to be we're going to talk about a little bit later on. He lost to Sean Brady, but we know Kelvin Gastelum has a lot to offer still. He's kind of this boxer on the feet. He has solid takedown defense. He's pretty solid on the ground as a whole. But Vicente Luque, out of the odds that this fight is currently priced, Kelvin Gastelum's a minus 310. Vicente Luque is like a plus 250. At the odds, give me Vicente Luque, right? I think this fight is probably closer to like a 55% chance Kelvin Gastelum wins, a 45% chance Vicente Luque wins. But for the sake of just a prediction, I'm going to take Kelvin Gastelum. I don't think that you can bet on this fight. If you're going to bet on this fight, I think you kind of got to just take a dog shot and hope that Vicente Luque wins. I really could see this fight going either way. Both these guys really far from their primes, have given the UFC a lot, and so it's cool to see these guys matched up. But I don't really know here, if I'm being honest. I like Chuck Buffalo a lot in that first fight. I'm really not sure on this second fight. Give me Kelvin Gastelum to win the fight, but if we're talking betting, I want Vicente Luque. And so, moving onward, the next fight, Chris Padilla versus Marquel Mederos. This is another fight that is very, very difficult to pick. Chris Padilla has been an underdog in all 3 of his UFC fights, and he is 3-0 in the UFC. He has looked incredibly impressive as an underdog. He's coming off of I believe a KO win. I'm double checking this right now so I can give you guys, again, accurate information. I'm just forgetting who that KO win was against. I believe it was like a TKO in the 3rd round. No, it was the 2nd round. He beat Ismael Bonfim, split decision win over Jai Herbert. We all remember that crazy KO against Rong Zhu. And it was a doctor stoppage, but he's been very, very good as an underdog in the UFC. He has not been favored in a single fight in the UFC. Where Marquel Mederos, again, he hasn't fought nearly as good of competition as Chris Padilla. Split decision win over Austin Hubbard for Marquel Mederos. That leaves a lot to be desired. We all remember that fight. Landon Quinones winning by decision. A decision win against Chernovsky, who I don't even really know who Chernovsky is. I don't even remember that fight. That's how unmemorable Marquel Mederos is. But I do think Marquel Mederos has really, really solid stand-up on the feet. And Chris Padilla is going to be kind of a battle on the feet, right? And if Chris Padilla is able to kind of lure Marquel Mederos into a bar fight, then Chris Padilla is going to dominate this fight. But if Marquel Mederos is able to have like kind of a clean striking fight from the outside, Marquel Mederos is going to have a lot of success. And so this is another one of those fights that I would not take a bet on. And I'm conflicted. The Kelvin Gastelum Vicente Luque pick, I'm conflicted. The Chris Padilla Marquel Mederos fight, I'm conflicted. But because of the success that Chris Padilla has had against high-level competition, the ability to get finishes over guys like Ismael Bonfim, I believe that he's going to be able to move Marquel Mederos backward. If he can move Marquel Mederos backward, get Marquel Mederos against the cage, I do believe Chris Padilla can let his hands go. He has pretty strong boxing, but I wouldn't be surprised either if this fight is a split decision type of fight here. I am going to lean Chris Padilla, but I'd probably tell you guys no bet on this fight. I do understand why people would go with Marquel Mederos, and I would, if you really like Chris Padilla, you could throw him in a parlay. Chris Padilla is about minus 170, Marquel Mederos like plus 135, plus 140. And so, moving onward, the prelim opener of Tatiana Suarez, Loopy Godinez. And I'll tell you guys, this is a problem that I'm having on the prelims of this UFC 327 card. I think this tells you that these fights are good, solid fights to have, and they're well made. But Tatiana Suarez versus Loopy Godinez, I am so unsure who is going to win this fight. Tatiana Suarez looked very, very good in the earlier parts of her career, but she did not look that great in that last Amanda Lemos fight. She did not look that great in the fight previous to that, which was her title bout against Zhang Weili. And there was a lot of believers. People thought Tatiana Suarez was the female Khabib. If you're getting called the female Khabib, that's high. That is very, very high praise. Very, very high praise. But Loopy Godinez is very, very active on the feet, has a lot of razor close decisions in her career. And I think this one, again, will be another one of those razor close decisions. And I do believe that Tatiana Suarez is going to be able to get the takedowns off. But then again, Loopy Godinez has fought many, many fighters with very, very good takedowns. She lost to Mackenzie Dern not too long ago. Mackenzie Dern, a very, very talented grappler. I think this is going to be a split decision. I really understand going with either fighter here. I am going to lean Tatiana Suarez just because of the grappling pedigree, and I've always been very high on Tatiana Suarez. But if Tatiana Suarez loses this fight, Tatiana Suarez is 35 years old. Loopy Godinez, I'm curious how old Loopy is. I'm going to check this right now on my phone. I believe Luque Godinez is like 29. She's 32, so she's a little bit older. But Tatiana Suarez is 35, has had a lot of miles on her body. We all remember Tatiana Suarez took like 2 years off because she had neck surgery, I believe it was. And that's never great when a UFC fighter needs to have neck surgery. And so I'm going to lean Tatiana Suarez, but again, probably a no bet for me here. I wouldn't mind Tatiana Suarez by points or sub. She's definitely, man, I don't even know. I wouldn't mind Tatiana Suarez money line, but it'd be a sprinkle, just like the Chris Padilla fight. If you guys are confident in it, it'd be a sprinkle. You know, certainly not hammering. We have some big hammer spots later on in the card that we're going to be going with, but these prelims, unless you have any strong reads, I would recommend staying away. But again, lean Tatiana Suarez. And so moving onward, our first best bet of the night is going to come in this Mateusz Gamrot versus Esteban Ribovics fight. And Mateusz Gamrot, an absolute maniac, a chain wrestler, has incredible grappling, right? We all remember that fight against Arman Tsarukyan, the lone man in the UFC to beat Arman Tsarukyan. And that was a very, very close fight, and his grappling pedigree is absolutely insane. But as we saw in the Dan Hooker fight, as we saw the Charles Oliveira fight, less so because Charles Oliveira just beat him at what he's good at, right? But Esteban Ribovics doesn't have the game of Charles Durongs. But Mateusz Gamrot, we've seen he gets cracked in almost every single one of his fights. I want to look back and just recall, who Mateusz Gamrot has fought. But a lot of praise for Mateusz Gamrot. Mateusz Gamrot is a guy who's willing to take on anyone, anytime, anywhere, regardless of the circumstance. We all remember he had a very, very clean performance against Ludovic Klein, but he got cracked by guys like Jalen Turner. Benny Dariush cracked Mateusz Gamrot and dropped him, right? We've seen him lose to Guram Kutselase, and so we know Mateusz Gamrot has incredible grappling. But if you can put some hands on Mateusz Gamrot, you are going to hurt him. And as we saw in that Dan Hooker fight, I did have Mateusz Gamrot in that fight. I thought he was going to win. I thought he was going to win by decision. And so Gamrot could very well 30-27 Esteban Ribovics. And if you're going to take Gamrot, please, please, please take Gamrot by decision. But Esteban Ribovics, I know he lost his UFC debut against a freaking grappler who went 11 for 21 on takedowns. But Esteban Ribovics is 29. Mateusz Gamrot is 35. He's getting older and older. That chin is getting worse and worse. And I'm not sold on Mateusz Gamrot's game. He's great takedowns, but he doesn't even have great control. So Esteban Ribovics just needs to focus on doing damage, landing elbows, those kind of downward elbows when Mateusz Gamrot has him against the fence, right? Doing damage, constantly thinking about, okay, how can I do damage? How can I do damage? How can I do damage? And that's how Esteban Ribovics will win this fight. And in my opinion, I have this fight modeled at Esteban Ribovics being about a -120 favorite. And so if you're giving me a -120 favorite in my book at +150, I got to take it. This is going to be a lighter spot for us. It's definitely a best bet, but we're not hammering this spot. A unit or two from me, but Esteban Ribovics is got to be the pick here. The first underdog pick of the night, I believe. Yeah, that's our first underdog pick of the night. And so we are going Esteban Ribovics to get the job done. I do think Esteban Ribovics gets the job done by split decision. I do think it's a points outcome. And Esteban Ribovics by points is +440. I do think there's a chance he could KO Mateusz Gamrot. That's definitely a route to victory. So we're definitely going to put way more on Esteban Ribovics to win the fight, just straight up on the money line, already taking a +150 underdog, but potentially a little bit of a sprinkle on Esteban Ribovics to win by decision. And so +440, moving onward. Kevin, the homie, Kevin Holland versus Randy Brown. We all know I'm a huge Kevin Holland fan, but you can never trust Kevin the Trailblazer Holland. You can't trust him. Man, Randy Rude Boy Brown coming off of a huge loss. And so to both of these guys coming off of losses, and both of these guys on the older side. Randy Rude Boy Brown, 35 years old. Kevin Holland, 31. You see, both are very, very long welterweights. 78-inch reach for Randy Brown, 81 inches for Kevin Holland. Big KO win of Gabriel Bonfim coming off of Randy Brown's coming off of that loss. And Kevin Holland, We've seen Kevin Holland over and over and over again get dominated on the feet, got dominated on the ground, got dominated by Reinier de Ridder, got dominated by Mike Malott. But Randy Rude Boy Brown is not taking Kevin Holland down. And I know we just saw Kevin Holland lose to Daniel Rodriguez, D-Rod, which was absolutely ridiculous. That was diabolical. What a horrible, horrible, horrible loss by Kevin Holland. However, at 170, when Kevin Holland is taking this seriously, he is about as good as they come. Kevin Holland, I do believe, has slightly less clean stand-up, but he has way more pop. If someone knocks someone down, it's going to be Kevin Holland knocking Randy Rude Boy Brown down. If someone submits someone, it's going to be Kevin Holland finding a front choke against Randy Brown. And I have to do it. I have to do it. We're going with our second best bet of the night, our second underdog of the night. Kevin, the homie, the trailblazer, Kevin Holland to upset Randy Brown, a plus 100 underdog. I don't mind the submission sprinkle at like plus 600. Kevin Holland absolutely could submit Randy Brown, but he is not taking him down. That's one thing you got to be aware of. And Kevin Holland could really win this fight in any way. So obviously, we're going to go with a slightly more on Kevin Holland than I would on Esteban Ribovics, in my opinion. But if you want to sprinkle a long shot, exact result, I don't mind the submission sprinkle. But Kevin, the homie Holland, is the second best bet of the night and certainly what we are going with here. And so, moving onward, Aaron Pico versus Patricio Pitbull. And this is going to be a short breakdown from me. We got the Bellator boys going at it in the UFC. Not quite sure why the UFC made this fight. I kind of like Aaron Pico coming in here and fighting UFC guys. I kind of like Patricio Pitbull, seeing them against UFC guys. But we got to find out the battle of the Bellator. Who is really good? And I think Aaron Pico probably destroys Dan Ige. And Patricio Pitbull, he had a great win against Dan Ige. But I think Aaron Pico probably dismantles Dan Ige. Aaron Pico, he started off great in that Lerone Murphy fight. And I will say, I think I had Lerone Murphy in that fight. I do believe. But, man, Aaron Pico, I'm nervous about the chin. I am nervous about the chin. He got slept. Let's be real, guys. He got slept. If we've ever seen someone get, that was bad. That was bad. That was diabolical. But Patricio Pitbull, he's an old man. He's a geriatric old man. He's just like me. He's a geriatric old man. His body's hurting. He is 38 years old. Aaron Pico is still in his prime. What is Aaron Pico? 29? I'm checking on my phone to see how old Aaron Pico is. Aaron Pico is 29 years old. Patricio Pitbull is 38. And I just believe that if someone's going to be in better form at this point in their career, it's going to be Aaron Pico. I do believe that Aaron Pico is a pretty solid parlay piece here. I think with Pitbull, right? Like Pitbull doesn't have the pop in his hands to flatline Pico. And if you're going to beat Pico, you got to have some pop. And I know Lerone Murphy doesn't have the most pop, but Patricio Pitbull, man, he is just old. He's just old. And I really do believe that Aaron Pico is the right side here. I wouldn't mind like a Chuck Buffalo, Aaron Pico parlay out here, right? I think that's a pretty solid bet. But I think, if you want to take an exact result here, I'm probably not betting on this fight because Aaron Pico is minus 360. Aaron Pico by knockout at plus 180. I don't mind that at all. Him to win by points is plus 185. Not the biggest fan in the world of that. But give me Aaron Pico to win the fight. I will tell you guys, Chuck Buffalo, Aaron Pico parlay that may make it on the best bets card. If you have any questions about what I'm personally betting on, hit me up on Instagram, MMA Outlaw TV, or you can hit me up on TikTok, MMA Outlaw TV as well. And so, moving onward, Cub Swanson versus Nate Landwehr. Man, Nate Landwehr coming off of getting smoked by Morgan Charrier. Cub Swanson has actually been in pretty good form as of recent. And this is Cub Swanson's retirement fight. The 42-year-old taking on the 37-year-old. We got two old men going at it. But Cub Swanson looked pretty good. Split decision against Andre Touchy-Feely. That's aged really well. The third round KO over Billy Q. That's aged very well. A win over Hakeem Dawodu. That's aged very well, right? Cub Swanson's looked very, very good in his most recent fights. We've seen Nate Landwehr have some crazy comeback performances, right? We all remember that, oh my God, what was that insane comeback? I'm going back to see. Was it against Jamal Emmers? Was it the insane comeback? Dude, I think it might have been against David Onama. He had an insane, insane comeback against Onama. That's what it was. But he's gotten smoked by Duho Choi. He's gotten smoked by Morgan Charrier. And so another one of the best bets will be another underdog on the card, right? We've already taken Kevin, the homie Holland. We've already taken Esteban Ribovics. We told you guys Chuck Buffalo plus Aaron Pico, that parlay, going to be on the best bets, right? Now the fourth best bet of the night, Cub Swanson getting the win in his retirement fight. I know fighters don't typically win in their retirement fights, but he's gotten a very, very fair matchup here. And I do believe like Nate Landwehr is not going to be able to put the pace on that boy Cub. That boy Cub. Cub Swanson, the UFC legend, is going to be going out on the right page. Give me Cub Swanson to win the fight here and another one of our best bets, a third underdog pick. And so, moving upward, Dominick Reyes versus Johnny Walker. And let me tell you, someone's going to sleep here. Someone's going to sleep here. And I know we said that about like the Francis Ngannou-Derek Lewis fight, right? And I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty nervous. I'm pretty nervous that we could get one of those fights here. Could Dominick Reyes, could Johnny Walker, could they be very scared of being knocked out here on the feet? Could they be kind of tit for tat? Could it be a little bit of a sparring match? Could it be leg kicks on the ground, or leg kicks, kind of skirting around the outside? And I do think either one of these guys are very, very, very live in this fight. Honestly, this has got to be a no-bet spot. This has got to be a no-bet spot. You cannot be betting on Dominick Reyes or Johnny Walker in the Big 2-5 and the Big 2-6. In the Big 2-6, Johnny Walker, though, coming off of a big win against Zhongmin Young. Dominick Reyes coming off of a huge KO loss to Carlos Ulberg, but he was in great form prior to that. And I do believe that Dominick Reyes, he could snipe Johnny Walker with a left hand over the top. Johnny Walker, he could wobble Dominick Reyes, a huge flying knee. Either one of these guys could win by knockout. But if you want the long shot play here, listen up. Sprinkle the fight to go the distance. Sprinkle. If you want my long shot play here, sprinkle Dominick Reyes to win by points at plus 900. I do think Dominick Reyes is slightly the cleaner striker. I do think, however, Dominick Reyes is one of those guys he's going to go all in. I do think Johnny Walker could leg kick, skirt around the outside, and get a decision win there. I've seen some of my favorite guys, they're taking Johnny Walker. However, I got to lean Dominick Reyes in this spot. It's a difficult one. It's a difficult prediction to make, a very, very difficult prediction to make. But I'm going with Dominick Reyes here. Please, 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 whatever you do, I would ask you, if you're having a hot day and you want to, sprinkle some Dominick Reyes to win by a decision, if you're having a hot day and you want to take Dominick Reyes money line, you feeling good about either side here, go ahead. But I would encourage you guys to take this fight off. Usually, I'm not going to lie, the DGen in me, I sprinkle on every single fight, so I'm probably going to sprinkle on Dominick Reyes money line, and I'm probably going to sprinkle even less so on Dominick Reyes to win by decision because those long shot odds are just too good. They're just too good at plus 900 to pass up on. But I would encourage you guys, this is certainly a no-bet spot. But the prediction here for me is going to be Dominick Reyes, but it was a difficult one to make. And then moving onward, we got Curtis Blaydes versus the heel. Mr. Chael Sonnen of the heavyweight division, Josh Hokit. Josh the Incredible Hokit has looked incredible, as the name says, in his most recent performances. Coming into the UFC, making a huge name for himself. Making a name for himself at the press conferences, right? We all saw he got into it. He got into it with Jiri Procházka. We saw he was telling Carlos Ulberg, hey, Carlos Ulberg, you move up to heavyweight. I'll take you down, right? Josh, the Incredible Hokit, has an incredible wrestling pedigree. He comes from a great, great wrestling background, and I do believe that he will have the wrestling advantage over someone who is perceived as one of the top wrestlers in the heavyweight division in Curtis Blaydes, but Josh Hokit has looked great in his UFC tenure. He has never fought anyone of Curtis Blaydes' level, though. And I'm a little bit conflicted because I don't love such a huge jump up in competition. I would have loved Josh Hokit to fight a guy like Marcin Tybura, get kind of that Tyrell Fortune treatment. Tyrell Fortune got to fight Marcin Tybura, right? Can we slow it down a little bit for Josh Hokit? But no, we can't. And Curtis Razor Blaydes, man, he's been a staple. He's been a staple of the UFC heavyweight division, coming off a split decision win against Ruslan Kuniev, coming off of, before that, a knockout loss to Tom Aspinall, right? But he beat Jailton Almeida. But I want you guys to remember the first kind of two-ish or so rounds of that Curtis Blaydes Jailton Almeida fight. Man, Jailton was able to take Curtis Blaydes down with ease. And I do believe Josh Hokit and the pressure could absolutely overwhelm Curtis Blaydes. And man, there's just something about him. I will say, Curtis Blaydes, a very, very talented guy. But in some of these bigger matchups, even in that Rizvan Kuniev fight, I thought Kuniev could have won that. And I believe Josh Hokit would take Rizvan Kuniev out. I believe it's you either believe in Josh Hokit or you don't. And this is the fight here. This is a matchup. He's gonna I think he could overwhelm Curtis Blaydes and get him out of there in one round. And if he doesn't, I just don't see Curtis Blaydes finishing him. And I think Josh Hokit wins round one. And so if Josh Hokit doesn't get him out of there in round one, he wins round one, then he just has to win one of two or three. And I think Josh Hokit gets the job done here. And so, for another best bet, we're going with another underdog. We are all over the dogs here. The dogs are going to be barking. Give me Josh, the Incredible Hulk Hokit, to overwhelm Curtis Blaydes. I do believe he's going to get him out of there in round one. If not, he will get the job done by decision. So give me Josh Hokit on the money line as another one of our best bets. A plus 110 to plus 120 underdog. You're either a Josh Hokit believer or you're not. Get on the Incredible Hulk train. He was talking about that human centipede. He is going to add Curtis Blaydes as a name to that human centipede list. Curtis Blaydes, you are done for. From Josh, the Incredible Hulk Hokit. And I just think the UFC heavyweight division, they need a guy like Josh Hokit. And the difference between Josh Hokit and Colby Covington is Josh Hokit will put on great performances in the octagon, not just outside of it. And so give me Josh Hokit to win this fight here and another one of our best bets. And so moving onward, Azamat, the professional, Murzakanov versus Paulo Costa, who is making the move up to 205. Why is Paulo Costa moving up to 205? He's fought at 205 before against Marvin Vettori, and Marvin Vettori pieced him up. And that was just because Paulo Costa couldn't make 185. And so maybe that's why Paulo Costa is moving up here against a professional. But don't let the physiques fool you. Azamat Murzakanov had the way worse physique in his last fight against Alexander Rakic, right? And I was huge on Murzakanov in that fight. And Murzakanov absolutely slept Alexander Rakic. And I don't believe, both of these guys have pop. Yes, they totally got pop. But Azamat Murzakanov, I don't see him putting out Paulo Costa. I don't. I think it's possible. I definitely think it's possible, right? And so, man, this is a difficult fight. This is a difficult fight to make because I could see Azamat Murzakanov has not fought the level of competition that Paulo Costa has, right? He fought Rakic in his last fight. Great knockout win, right? But before that, he fought Brenton Ribeiro. And before that, he fought Alonzo Menifield. Before that, he fought Dustin Jacoby. And Dustin Jacoby's pretty solid. I do think Dustin Jacoby is probably the second best guy he's fought, right? And Azamat Murzakanov, he's old. He is 36 years old. And Paulo Costa, he did beat Roman Kopylov. He lost to Sean Strickland, right? He lost to Robert Whittaker, but he's just below that kind of Robert Whittaker, Sean Strickland level. And will he have lighter man skill here moving up to middleweight? I don't believe so. Azamat Murzakanov, the professional, is an incredibly good striker. He's very, very intelligent on the feet. He is just a very, very defensively sound guy. I don't mind Azamat Murzakanov as a parlay piece, but I will say one of my favorite props of the night is Azamat Murzakanov to win this fight by decision. Him to win by decision is plus 190. Plus 190, that's a great number. And I don't mind Azamat Murzakanov as a parlay piece here. I don't see him finishing Paulo Costa, which is why I think that parlay or that Azamat Murzakanov to win by points is such a great prop bet, such a great value bet, because I do believe he's a more talented striker and he has more to offer on the feet here. And so Azamat Murzakanov to win the fight by decision will be a best bet as well at plus 190. You know we love some dog plays. We love some exact results. And that will be a leg of the cycle parlay as well. And so moving onward, Carlos Ulberg, the fight we all came here for. Carlos Ulberg versus Jiri Procházka. And let me tell you, Jiri Procházka, he's a wild man. He is a wild man. I love Jiri. I love Jiri. You know, how can you not? Was down 2 rounds to Khalil Roundtree. Absolutely finishes him, right? Dominates him. He doesn't dominate him, right? Khalil Roundtree was dominating that fight, but just finds a way by any means necessary is kind of that Jiri Procházka model, right? We all remember that fight against Glover Teixeira when he was fighting for the belt was getting dominated, but just finds a way to find the finish with an incredible submission win. Against Jamal Hill was getting pieced up in that second round, but finds a way to walk through Jamal Hill. And if you're unable to shut Yuri's lights off, man, he's going to shut yours off, either by submission or by KO, right? And so the only man who's really been able to shut Jiri Procházka's lights out has been Alex Poatan Pereira. But the Black Jag, Carlos Ulberg, man, one of the best fighters we have ever seen. A 205 version of Israel Adesanya, right? City kickboxing. Ooh, this fight is difficult to predict, but I have a strong read here, and it is my favorite bet of the card. Give me Carlos Ulberg on the money line. Jiri Procházka leaves himself open to be hit. And you remember when Alonzo Menefield charged in at Carlos Ulberg, man, that short right hand. Carlos Ulberg is an incredible counter striker. He is very, very, very clean on the feet. And if someone is beating Jiri Procházka, it's going to be a guy like Carlos Ulberg, right? What does Jiri Procházka struggle with? He struggles with strong counter punchers who have power and who have great leg kicks. That's exactly what Carlos Ulberg is. Carlos Ulberg is on a 9-fight win streak and has lost 1 fight in his entire career, and it's simply because he gassed out. He tried to do too much too early, and I think Carlos Ulberg has learned from that. I think he has come back and is a much better fighter, and Carlos Ulberg at plus 100. You're giving me underdog money on Carlos Ulberg? Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I'm a big fan of Carlos Ulberg here. Big fan of Carlos Ulberg in general. I'm a big fan of Carlos Ulberg right here in this spot. And so our last best bet of the card is Carlos Ulberg to win against Jiri Procházka. And yes, this was a very, very difficult prediction to make. I know if it gets into round 2, round 3, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit nervous, right? And so I got Carlos Ulberg, huge money on Carlos Ulberg, and then a little bit of money on Carlos Ulberg to win by knockout because I do believe that he will shut Jiri Procházka's lights out. And so, with that being said, we're going to do what we always do. Go up here to the top, and we're going to break down, do a speed run through every single one of our predictions for every fight. And so, Jiri Procházka versus Carlos Ulberg. Give me Carlos Ulberg. Murzakanov versus Paulo Costa. Give me Murzakanov. Give me Josh Hokit versus Curtis Blaydes. And give me Dominick Reyes versus Johnny Walker. A hard one to pick. Cub Swanson, that's the pick, versus Nate Landwehr. We're going with Aaron Pico versus Pitbull. We're going to go with Kevin Holland against Randy Brown. Give me Esteban Ribovics to upset Mateusz Gamrot. Tatiana Suarez to beat Loopy Godinez. And then these early prelim picks, not too confident in them, but give me Chris Padilla to win the fight versus Marquel Mederos. Give me Kelvin Gastleum to beat Vicente Luque. And give me Chuck Buffalo, Charles Radtke to beat Francisco Prado. And so, just to remind you guys, our best bets, Carlos Ulberg on the money line and Carlos Ulberg sprinkle to win by knockout. Absolutely. Way heavier on the money line, obviously. Murzakanov, another one of our best bets. I love Murzakanov as potentially a parlay piece, but I'm not going to give you the parlay. I'm going to let you build it yourself. But the best bet that we're going to have here is Murzakanov to win by points. That is at plus 190. Absolutely love those odds there. Josh Hokit on the money line. That is another one of our best bets. Absolutely. The Incredible Hulk to upset Curtis Blaydes. That Dominick Reyes, Johnny Walker fight, I would advise you guys to stay away. But I will put the smallest amount of sprinkles on Dominick Reyes to win the fight by points at plus 900. Cub Swanson on the money line. Absolutely love that. That is another one of our best bets. And then heading down to the prelims, don't have many here, but give me Kevin Holland to win the fight on the money line. Give me Esteban Ribovics to win the fight on the money line. And those are all of our best bets. No other best bets here. Although we do have Chuck Buffalo. I will give you this parlay. I do like Charles Radtke plus Aaron Pico to get the job done as a best bets parlay. If you want to throw Murzakanov in there, be my guest. I think Murzakanov is an okay parlay piece, but I love Murzakanov to win by decision. And so that was all of our best bets on the card. Let me know who you guys are personally betting on in the comment section. Let me know about the picks. Let me know if you agree, if you disagree. Tell me what you got this weekend. And so that'll be it for today. If you enjoy content just like this, make sure to like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.